the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after me. Your goodness is running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after me.
From eternity in the past to eternity in the future, you're God all by yourself. Before you summoned us from the genes of our parents, you knew this day would come, that regardless of our stature, regardless of the context in which we live, regardless of the color of our skin, the texture of our hair, the content of our head, you have declared that all have sinned, come short of your glory. You have declared that there is salvation in no other. You have declared that you love the world and you're not willing that anyone should perish, but that all should come to repentance. This moment needs more than what Isilda's boy can bring. God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, take this moment. Take this moment. Take this moment. Do with it as you will. Give the wind a mighty voice. You have said that the everlasting gospel, this gospel of the kingdom, should be preached in all the world, and then the end shall come. You have chosen that by the foolishness of preaching you would confound the wise. Great God Almighty, have your way is our prayer. In Jesus' name. You may be seated. It was one of those regular days in the life of Jesus. But if you know Jesus, if you know anything about him, there's hardly anything regular about him. Though the prophet declared that he had no form or comeliness that we should desire him, he is still the desire of ages. It was one of those unusual days. The gospel writer Matthew, Mark, and Luke captured the story. As a matter of fact, Matthew began the story by saying he entered into a ship and that they brought to him a man sick of the palsy. Matthew set this story in the context of his own call to follow Jesus. Matthew set the story that it's a busy day. Jesus is always busy doing something. There's not a lazy bone in Jesus. Even when they felt that he needed to eat, they say to him, "Master, stop and eat." And he said, my food is to do the will of him that sent me. When they said to him, "Master, you're taxing yourself," he said, I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day, because the night cometh when no man can work. And there's something about his usage of night. There's something about that issue of night. When you see night coming in where the light of the world is it any wonder then that as Judas prepared to betray his master, the writer of the gospel said, and Judas went out and it was night. Jesus is saying that the night comes when the opportunity to rescue the world will be over and done. The night comes when I can't do more in the flesh. The night comes when those who now need to meet me, those who now need, the night comes when no man can work. I must do it while it is day. It's one of those unusual days, and on his mind, he's always carrying on his mind the burden of a lost world, the burden of a lost soul, the burden of a helplessness. He's always carrying on his heart. You never meet Jesus and his mind is not preoccupied with somebody's issue. Are you listening to me? It's one of those unusual days, and Matthew set the story that whilst he was going on, there came a certain ruler. You have to understand the language in the text, because the ordinary sinners were not called rulers, and the ordinary followers were not styled by the gospel writer as a ruler. You either have to be one of those powerful Jews or one of those powerful Romans. And so this certain ruler came and worshiped him, saying, my daughter is even now dead, but come, lay your hand on her, and she shall live. I don't know if the text is getting to you as it is getting to me. The ruler, he came, he has power, he has authority, he has substance, but every now and then life throws some stuff at you. Every now and then life confronts you with some stuff that your power and your substance and your authority can't handle. Every now and then life throws some stuff at you that your intellect can deal with, that the power you have, the stuff that you've been living by all your life, that has made you comfortable, that has put you in charge and made you feel that you are that. Every now and then life throws some stuff at you that cuts you down to size. Every now and then life throws some stuff at you that forces you in a corner and back you up against the wall until you understand that you need somebody else to help you handle this. Every now and then life has a way of confronting you. You see, we are gifted at sometimes feeling that all that we can handle, we have enough to handle it. He comes to Jesus. He comes to Jesus. And there's something here about the quality and the substance of his faith. At the point when he was leaving her, he knew she was almost dead. But now he says to Jesus, my daughter is even now dead. But anything the devil kills, you have the power to bring it back. I come to you because I am acknowledging that the rulership I have and the power I wield is no match for the demons of darkness. But I sense in you, Jesus, that even when the devil reduces my circumstances, reduces my life to nothing, the best place for my nothingness is still in the hands of a God who made the world from nothing. So my daughter is even now dead, but you are the resurrection and the life. So here's my plea. Pass me not, O gentle Savior. Hear my humble plea. Would you come to my house? Because if I can't take the problem to you, I'm going to take you to my problem. The only thing I want you to know, that when you and my problem get together, there has got to be a divine solution. And the text says, Jesus turned about. The text says, Jesus arose and followed him, and so did his disciples. Now I'll tell you the title for our message today. This time is my time. I'm not going to preach on the ruler and his daughter. I'm going to preach on the text that comes right afterwards. The text is the text that almost every preacher has preached, and I've got nothing new to say on it, but there's power in the old story. And somebody listening to me from Negril Point to Moran Point, from Nassau and Barbados and Dominica and Suriname and Saba, somebody listening to me from Abaco and Berry Islands and New Providence, somebody listening from Belize and Guyana, somebody need to hear the old story. So this is the text. And behold, now don't forget now, he's on his way somewhere. Don't forget, his mind is occupied now with going to the house where grief is, with going to the house where somebody acknowledged that the problem in his house needed somebody and a power outside of and beyond himself. Don't forget now that he's going to a house where there is a problem that can be handled by ordinary faith. Are you listening to me? He's going to a house where there's a problem that needs radical surgery, radical assistance. And the Bible said as he turned to go, he's on his way and the crowd is following him. Here's the text. And behold, a woman which was diseased with an issue of blood for 12 years came behind him and touched the hem of his garment, for she said within herself. Now let me ask you to underline this clause in your mind. For she said within herself. Now your neighbor didn't hear, so turn around. You're 6 feet apart. Tell your neighbor with your mask on, she said within herself. Tell your neighbor that the preacher is calling that intrinsic motivation. I tell your neighbor that the preacher is calling that functional autonomy. Tell your neighbor that the line says she said within herself. Now pause right there and jump with me to Mark chapter 5. I'm going to read the story for you from Matthew, Mark, and Luke, but I'll come back to Matthew and you'll discover why. Walk with me. We're just sharing the word today. Mark chapter 5, and the story begins at verse 25. So we go to Mark chapter 5 and verse 25. And I just saw that I wrote something last night. I left you last night. I went down and I normally go in the chat because always there are persons indicating in there. And I don't know, Anne-Marie Leslie, if you're listening to me, and I know you are, I didn't write the straight that you were, but you type in the chat, I want to be baptized, but I need counseling. If you're hearing me, I couldn't get a number, and I had intended to say it this morning, but I just saw that I had put the paper with your name on my Bible. And so, Anne-Marie, would you reach out in the chat, and somebody will send you some connecting stuff so that you can connect with us. Where did I say I was going? What book I was going to? I was going to Mark. What chapter did the old man say? You see, the old man is a hyperactive old man, so his mind is prone to wander. Are you listening to me? What verse did I say I was going to? Yes, so there you got it, there you have it. So let me pick up the story at verse 22 so you get the context that Matthew and Mark has the same story in mind. Verse 22 said, behold, there cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and when he saw him, now watch this here, Matthew said a certain ruler, but Mark gives his name. Hang on to that, I'll come back to it. And behold, there came one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and when he saw him, he fell at his feet and besought him greatly. He besought him greatly, saying, my little daughter lieth at the point of death. I pray thee, come and lay thy hands on her, that she may be healed, and she shall live. And Jesus went with him, and much people, many persons were following him, and they thronged him, meaning the crowd was thick, meaning the crowd was a whole lot of people. And the Bible said, and in this crowd a certain woman which had an issue of blood for 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing better, but rather grew worse. And when she heard of Jesus, when she had heard of Jesus, she came in the press, she came in the crowd, and she touched his garment. Watch this, watch this. Matthew said something that I'll come back to. Luke said she touched his garment. I'll come back to Luke, to Mark rather, but I've got to take you down to Luke. Luke 8 and verse 44. It's the same story. It's the same story. Now, work with the old man. I'm going someplace. It is the same story. Luke chapter 8 and verse 44. What book did I say, somebody? I did say Luke. What chapter? Yes, you're correct. What verse? What verse? Yes, so let me pick it up. Let me pick it up from verse 43. And a woman having an issue of blood 12 years, which had spent all her living upon many physicians, neither could be healed of any of them, came behind and touched the border of his garment, and touched the border of his garment. And Jesus said, who touched me? And all denied. And Peter, who feels that he must always speak before he thinks, he said, Master, can't you see a crowd around you? And you asking this question that doesn't make sense? Who touched you? And Jesus said, somebody. Jesus said, somebody. Matthew said, a certain woman. Mark said a certain woman. Now pick up some pieces in the three stories. Matthew said she touched the H-E-M. Luke said she touched the B-O-R-D-E-R. Mark said she touched his garment. Now there's something here that you've got to look at in the language of specificity. The gospel writers sometimes capture the essence from the vantage point, and there's something I want to work with you on before we get into the meat of the matter. Are you listening to me? But don't let the word meat trouble you. Before we get into the matter, before we get into the substance. So let me take you back. Let me take you back to what Mark says. Now, where did we find the story in Mark? What chapter it was? It was Mark 5. So work with the old man now. In Mark chapter 5, the Bible said that this certain woman which had an issue of blood 12 years and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had. I never quite understood it, Dr. Brown, but they taught me in Greek that the text has a voice. And they spoke about the voice of the text, whether it is active voice or passive voice. Well, in all three gospel writers, it is set in the context of a passive voice. And so in the passive voice, if it were active, it means that she would have brought the stuff on herself. If it were active voice, it means that she would have actively caused her suffering. But the text in the three gospel writers is set in the context of the passive voice, and the passive voice said something was happening to her that she didn't bring on herself, that something was happening to her, and whatever was happening to her, she did not go out and deliberately bring it on herself. But the truth is, for 12 years she's been handling it silently. For 12 years she's been dealing with it, and the Bible said she has suffered many things of many people. She has spent all that she... Have you ever spent everything you've got to get one thing in return, and it keeps eluding you? It keeps eluding you. You're spending your emotions. You're spending your love capital. You're spending, it's not just money, but you're spending everything you have. You've given everything to this one relationship that you have got common sense that says it's not going to work, but you keep on giving everything you've got. You spend everything on it, and you're hoping if you keep on doing the same old thing, the same old way, you're going to have a new experience. But you've discovered painfully that after spending all that you have, after giving all that you have, the text said, rather than getting better, she got worse. She's lost her dignity, lost her self-worth, all on the ground. Her broken dreams are scattered on the ground, and she's in a moment of reflection. And you know, sometimes when you reflect on stuff, especially when you know that you knew better, but you kept on hoping that somebody else will change to give you what you're looking for, you kept on hoping if you just give some more, if you just give some more, if you just do some other stuff, and you're discovering. So here's her story. The Bible calls it an issue of blood. My good friend Classford Woolery had a little boy who was in class with my last daughter. And the little boy wanted to play, and his daddy said, "It's time to stop playing, come." And he looked up at his daddy and said, "You've got issues. You've got issues." Now, you may think that only women have issues. And because of who we are as men, when we've got issues, it's more destructive and dangerous, because we sometimes bottle our issues on the inside. We don't feel that we must surrender. We don't feel we must let go. So the man is barbecuing. His friends are coming, and he has the stuff on the outside. He's barbecuing, let's call it veggie meat. He's barbecuing some veggie meat, and he takes the barbecued stuff inside the back porch. Pastor Brown puts it down, and he comes back. He's barbecuing, but there's a mongrel at the bushes watching him, and the mongrel timed him. Mongrel said, okay, each time he takes the stuff in, it takes him so long. And so this time he comes back and he picks up hot off off the grill, the one that's done. And when he turns his back, Mongrel said, bless the Lord, it's now my time, and I only have a little time to do this. And the mongrel leaped to the bushes and leaped through. Usain Bolt couldn't catch him. He picks up the stuff off the grid. It's burning him, and the man heard the yelling, yow, 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 yow. But the trouble is, he picked it up, it's burning him, but he's not letting it go. That's the trouble with us. The stuff is burning us. We're screaming. It's causing us hurt. It's causing us pain. But our issue is we feel we've got to hold on to some stuff. Even when it's killing us, we feel the pain. We feel the hurt. And the mongrel is yelling. The hot stuff is burning him, but he's not letting it go. We've got issues. We've got issues. And the text says, when she spent all that she had, what is the one thing that you would give everything you have right now to get that one thing? What is the one thing that you seek? The one thing that in your quiet moment you need, that you would trade everything. If only I could get this one thing. She spent all her money. She goes from this one to that one. And each one she goes to was just practicing on her. You didn't get me. Each one she goes to was just practicing on her. And she paid for it. And it keeps making her worse, but she keeps changing to find another who she thinks can make her better. Now Luke said, she suffered many things of many people. She could have grown bitter against people, even against the man who is at the front of the crowd. There are some persons, because of what other people have done to them, they got bitter against God. There are some backsliders who once were in church serving God, but because of other people practicing on them, they got bitter not only against those people, but they became bitter against the one person who can help them. And that's why today there are some backsliders still outside the church. They've picked up the stuff off the grid. It's burning them, and they're screaming their heart out. Their emotions are hurting. Physically they're hurting. They're hurting all the way through, but they have become so bitter, they are even bitter at God. Where is God when I'm hurting? Title of Philip Yancey's book, Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? Title of Hare Krishna's book. And C.S. Lewis had a book while he was transitioning from being an atheist to a Christian. He wrote the book, God in the Dark. And he talks about his own conversion, that he was against God. He was anti-God. He was an atheist, and that God was on trial in his own mind. But he came to the understanding, he arrived at the conclusion that the best option he has is the same God with whom he's angry. If you're angry at God because of what other people have done to you, can you stop and spend the next 20 minutes with the preacher? Are you listening to me? I'm running. Now, Mark said, if I could touch his garment. Luke said, if I could touch the border of his garment. The Bible said she suffered many things. And the Greek word that the text used here is a word called pasco in the passive voice. And pasco means to undergo silently, to undergo passively. Now, Matthew used a word that is very significant. Matthew said, I'm not going to just touch him. Walk with me. Matthew said, she said within herself. Listen to me carefully. There are two things I want to work with here. The first is she said within herself. The second is the word that Matthew used. Matthew said, I want to touch the hem of his garment. And the Greek and Hebrew word for that word, H-E-M, is Z-I-Z-I-T-H. And to understand what zizit mean, you've got to go back to the book of Numbers and hear God as he spoke to Israel. He said, Moses, tell the priests when they come out of Egypt, tell them I want them to make fringes of blue in the borders of their garment. Well, what was this zizit? It was a piece of blue ribbon stitched with 7 stitches running down this way and 7 stitches running the next way. Somebody ought to understand, my God has a special love for the number 7. Are you listening to me? I said, God, he could have made the world in 8 days, but he did it in 7 days. And in the last book of the Bible, I hear him speak of 7 letters and 7 churches and 7 angels and 7 trumpets and 7 vials and 7 spirits of the God who made the Sabbath out of the 7th day. Are you listening to me? So she said within herself, I've tried many physicians, I've tried many healers, but I'm looking for the man. I'm looking for the one who's got the ribbon of blue in the border of his garment. You want to understand what that ribbon of blue meant? The God of Israel said, let them make fringes in the borders of blue, because it is a sign that they are loyal to me. It's a sign that they are fully obedient and fully surrendered. So she said within herself, if anybody will help me, I want somebody who is loyal to God. I want somebody who's fully obedient to God. I don't just want any old preacher to be my preacher. I don't just want to touch any old person. I've tried that and it never worked. But help me, God. I'm looking. And she's pushing through the crowd. She's looking through the crowd. Matthew said, she said, I want to touch the zizit. I want to touch that special hem that is stitched with the ribbon of blue that speaks to me that he's got connection with the Father. I'm not going to take anybody's word any longer. I want to see some evidence that you are lined up with God. If you're going to be my teacher, if you're going to be my healer, you've got to have the sign. You've got to have the behavior. You've got to have the demonstration that you are a child of God. Are you listening to me? And she's hemorrhaging. And if you've been bleeding for 12 years, it is reasonable to assume that your strength is low. It's reasonable to assume that you've been frustrated, that you have been disappointed, you've been disregarded, you've been dissed. But she understands, I've gone through hell and high water. I've been through all the stuff and I've heard opinions from everybody else, but this time it's my time. This time It's my time. No, listen to me, listen to me. When you look at Matthew, Mark, and Luke, she heard that he was passing. He didn't come to stay. Can I talk to you? The gospel did not come to stay. The preaching of the gospel is to prepare you and me and an ungodly world for the coming of the Lord. And when the gospel shall be carried to the ends of the earth, the pulpit will remain silent. The Bibles will be closed. The baptismal pool will be closed. The call to repent will be heard no more. And so she said within herself, it's my time. He's only passing. He's not here to stay. I've got to do whatever I must do. This is my time. I've wasted my time on others. I've wasted my substance. I've wasted my money. But today, I don't care how thick the crowd is. I'm looking for zizit. I'm looking for the border. I'm looking for the hem. And she's pushing through. God knows she's tired and worn. Have you ever gotten sick and tired of being sick and tired? You've been fighting the devil, and the stuff you've hated, when you think you've gotten the victory, the devil knocks you down again, and you become sick and tired. Maybe you would have been baptized a long time ago, but you've gotten sick and tired, and you feel you can't be bothered anymore. Because every time you come close to making your mind up, the devil seems to pile on the pressure, and you feel that I can't go through all of this. Here's my next phrase in the text that spoke volume to me. She said within herself. I told you I called it intrinsic motivation, functional autonomy. It was not the Bible worker who spoke with her. It was not the preacher who spoke with her. It was not the elder who spoke with her. She's in the chat. She's watching online. She's watching online, and she's been watching now for 4 weeks, but she hasn't seen a Bible worker. Maybe she posted her name in the chat, but nobody reached out to her. So she said within herself, it's my time. She said within herself, I haven't seen a Bible worker from Nassau or Jamaica. I haven't seen anybody. I haven't seen the pastor. I haven't seen the elder. But I've got a problem that I can't carry any longer. So Bible worker or no Bible worker, this time is my time. I've heard enough about the healer from Galilee. This time is my time. And notice, if you will, that when Matthew spoke about Jairus, Matthew said a certain man. When Mark spoke about him, Mark did say a certain man named Jairus. But for Matthew, this is a nameless woman, because she represents you, and she represents me, and she represents all of us, because all of us got some issues that the healer is the only one who can fix it. We have some unconverted attitude. We have some destructive practices. We have some sinful stuff that we hold on to. We have some issues, and it's one thing when it's just a regular cycle, young lady, but it becomes a grave problem when it becomes a hemorrhage. And there is no break. It's not just every 28 days, it's every day, full stop. It's every day, full stop. Now, to help you understand the cultural context and the religious context in which she lived, the issue was of such that the Bible in Leviticus said, as long as she has that issue, she can connect a certain way with her spouse, her husband. She can't go to church. She can't worship in the temple. As long as she's got the issue, it cuts her off from intimacy. The only love that she needed, the issue that she has, cut her off even from that. I don't know which woman is listening to me, and the issue has cut you off from your marital union. The Bible said, as long as she has the issue, she can't enjoy intimacy in her bed. The Bible said, as long as she has that issue, she can't go to worship